Welcome along, race fans, and today's Graham Brown interview is with the reigning National Hot Rod World Champion, Mr. Malcolm Blackman. Welcome along, Malcolm.
Hi, Graham.
7 years since you last won the title, 2004. Were you beginning to think it was never going to happen again?
To win one, like I said before, was really good. You know, you do think maybe you'll never win it. There's a lot of good drivers that's never won it at all. So, like I said, this year's World Final, to win one, I was really pleased.
How did the two races compare from your standpoint? Which was the most difficult one to win?
I don't know. I can hardly remember the first one. It seems it is that such a long time ago. I mean, not having a stoppage, I definitely think helps me in the main race.
Does it help you or does it help the car?
I don't know. Maybe it helps both. We try to set the car to do the long distance. If you get a few stoppages, then it doesn't go into the plan of it, I suppose.
Before the incident with Matt Simpson and Shane Murphy, and even to an extent Chris Haird, were you thinking there was any chance of you winning it from the position that you were in at that time?
Oh yeah, I mean the car, Chris was holding us up. We was already on him from the beginning, then we sort of backed up because Matt was going away. And then obviously we was already starting to put some pressure on Chris at that time. So the car was good. We knew it was good, but it fell on my lap really.
Yeah, I was going to say it did sort of fall in your lap, but what did you think when you were coming down the back straight and that was all unfolding ahead of you?
Well, I see Math still don't think Math moved over as much as people think, so it was like we was on the outside of Chris and I expected Chris to move out, but he went for the inside, which there was going to be no hole. So then it was sort of head down as fast as we could go for 10 laps.
You must have actually seen a hole opening up like the parting of the Dead Sea or something in front of you, surely.
Well, yeah, we always go for the crash. I know some people say that's the wrong way to go, but by the time you get there, it's not there. And that was one of them, it wasn't there. He had to go forward, he weren't going to go backwards. So we went to where he was. And obviously Chris went for the hole, but didn't quite make it through.
And obviously you knew you were in the lead once you'd got it. So were you just sitting there then waiting for something to break, or were you happy it was going to run to the finish, no problem?
I don't know really. I mean, once we got past, obviously you know how fast Shane is, we all do. He's super on times. So it was a case of going as fast as we could and just keep watching the mirror to keep. But the distance, he didn't make any ground. Some people said he had broken steering. Maybe he hurt the tyres, which he wouldn't normally do to get past Chris. I don't know really what it was, but I'm quite glad.
Yes, I'm sure you are, and I'm sure your legions of fans were as well. Going back in time a little bit, how did you first get into racing in the very first instance? How and why did you actually start on the ovals?
Through Dad used to drive a skip lorry, used to go into Jeff's tip. That was really one of it. Maybe being a naughty kid was trying to sort of get me out of trouble. And Jeff helped my dad to get a mini stock, which is where I first started for Speedworth, which would have been 1985, I think that was. That was quite a while ago. That's how I got into it. I mean, we used to go and watch before with a chap called Alan Barrett, who lived down our road, and
a super stock driver, was he?
Yeah, super stock driver. He used to take us to Eastbourne on a Wednesday when we was at school. And Dickie Sharp, he used to take us stock rodding. Then obviously Mark used to take me with Dave and him. Dave Willis and Mark Willis. So yeah, it was sort of where we are. There's still quite where we come from, in Langley. There's a lot of people in the motor racing. So, and even going back then, you could always get a lift to a meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. So after the did you win anything big in the minis?
Nope, I was rubbish.
So after that, did you jump straight from there to saloon stock cars?
No, I had a stock rod, one of Mark's old cars, which we had lots of trouble. He had lots of trouble with the engine, and we had lots of trouble with it. We'd done all right. We won a few, but didn't stick it long enough. I wanted to do saloons, and then I think we must have only probably had about 6 months and went into saloons, which I enjoyed.
Yeah, and you built quite a radical car fairly early on in that when you were doing the saloon stock cars, didn't you?
Yeah, I think back sort of in them days, not because Dad never had nothing to do with motor racing, and we didn't really have a clue, and you just gone and bought someone else's rubbish, which we bought. Brian Tingley's, or an ex-Brian Tingley car, which was rubbish, and we come here to Ipswich one year and they weighed them all, and we realised that we was way miles too heavy. We had like double the weight, so we went back to Jeff's then and built a new car, so we took the good bits from Dean's car, which he was the good man then, he was a top boy, Kevin Shin, Robert George, took all theirs, Ray Gowdy, took all the bits that you looked around their cars that were good and stuck it all into one and probably moved it on a little bit more than it probably should have gone, but that was the rules and we went to it.
Because that was one of the first cars where you built a frame and then put the body panels on later, wasn't it? Almost like a kind of a crude national hot rod, really, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean there was a lot of work in it. It was, it was unbelievable work. It literally was. Everything was made, and you literally just put the skins around the outside. It was a proper race car, really.
I remember seeing it taking shape in the workshops and watching you working on it over night time. So you had some success with that, I realise. But what eventually decided you to move into non-contact stuff full time? Because you went from there to 1600 hot rods, is that right?
Yeah, I like the 1600s. It's, I suppose the trouble is when you're not that confident in a car, to do a saloon doesn't really matter if you hit things. Do you know what I mean? So it didn't. That was sort of why you went that way. They were cheaper. And you got a lot of experience with the racecraft. And then I can't think whose car, Richard Edwards, which another local boy, sold his car to John Gray, and then we ended up buying that. So we thought we'd have a go and really stayed with hot rods ever since.
Yeah, and presumably it was just natural progression for you to switch from racing the, what would then have been 2 litre hot rods, into the Nationals.
Yeah, we couldn't, like I said earlier, there's a lot of people in Nationals that haven't won the world final, and I was one of them in the 1600, then went into the 2 litre. You turn up every year, being fast all year, and just can't get it together. Whatever the reason was, car, me, nerves, I don't know. But we just couldn't press the button.
We got some good races out of it though, didn't we?
Oh yeah, I mean we've had some good races. Probably my best races are the second and thirds, not the winning. When I look back, I think it was probably 93 or 94, McCall round Wimbledon and won Best in Britain was probably my first ever race that you changed from being a good blue top to being a superstar. You've gone there in 2 reverse grids and had a really good race, and that's one that will always stick in my mind. You never won it, but it was a real good race from the first corner to the end.
But that said, what was it that finally let you move on to Nationals, if you want, without kind of ever dominating the 2 litres?
Peter Wing, I suppose, really. He decided that, Starfire was doing what was flexi in them days. He wanted me to move up, and I said I could never. I would help Phil White, obviously another really good driver, used to help me. And it was one of them never going to be able to afford it. But then we bought Charlie Weaver's, I think it was, 205. And then when we come out, we wasn't that far away. So that was why we had a go and we stuck it. And still to today, the help I get, isn't I can afford one. We just get so much support, so much help. The garage is full of people every night. And it is 5 nights a week. They're just crowded.
Well, it's like George Polly says, more races are won in the workshop than are ever won at the track. You did actually step back into stock rods for a short time though, didn't you? I seem to remember.
Yeah, that was Peter. Peter bought, I don't know if it was Melly Cooks or one of them from around his area, and he just couldn't get it to go. So he asked me to run it, and we had probably 6 months of struggling with it. And then when we got it good, we give it back to him. That was all really.
It was never in any intention to actually just keep on racing in the Formula as well, though.
No, I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all.
So you've won the race in your Peugeot. You seem to have flirted frequently with the Vauxhall Tigre A. You had one, you did the Thunder 500, which is like one race at one meeting. It didn't finish, and it was almost like you said, don't like that, don't want to use that. Then I heard sometime later you had another one which never came out. Now I've heard you've got another one. Are you ever going to run the Tigre?
I don't know. It's one of them. The first one we built with Chris, and obviously it takes us a while to get it going. Chris done us a blinding car. Then the rules changed, so the car wasn't going to be ever as good as what its first intentions were. And then Ian Fewings, which obviously is Ludlow Motorsport now, he wanted it. So he come and he had the car, and then I had a second one to replace it with to the newer rules. And then things in life changed, and I had to sell it. It wasn't I wanted to sell it, it had to be sold, so I sold it. And then it's took me a few years now to get back to where I want. So I've had another one done, which was supposed to be in for this year's World, but just run out of time and money as normal, and it's fairly close to being used, but it was complete, but it's not now.
And you've been robbing parts off it, I suppose.
Everyone's been robbing parts. I mean, Steve Blockade, or Steve Burrows, as everyone else would know him, he had the engine in. Phil Spinks for the World Final had the gearbox. The rear axle and shafts was in mine. So it was complete on the button, and now it's not. So, but hopefully through the winter we'll try and put it back together.
Well, when it's not acting as a hot rod motor factors, you are going to put it back together and actually use it at some point then?
Yeah, well, I don't know if we're doing round 9 after, is it, or whenever it is. That's the one that I'm hoping to use it for.
When you say round 9 after?
Well, it'll be the round. If we do 8 rounds or 6 rounds, whatever we do after the winter break, that's the one that I'd like to use it for.
Yeah, it will be round 9 usually, it will be the first one of 2012. So that's when you're planning on having it out, yeah? Do you think you've lost anything by not using one up to now?
I don't know. I mean, we was way off the pace last year with the car. We tried some radical things, didn't work. Then obviously Stewart's helped us massively come along and thrown some ideas in the pot. Took us a few meetings before we all sort of got our head around it. Then Tuvi's done a massive job on the engine last year, which all the time you develop or trying to develop something, you go backwards a few steps, which is what we was doing. You know, we'd done a lot of backward before we went forward. Phil Spink's the same. You know, you go over there and he'd say you've gone no further forward. And then I suppose sort of from the end of probably, I don't know, round 12, maybe round 13, we started to make some good progress. We knew on a times at the end of every final it was getting quicker and quicker, it was getting softer on tyres, so we knew we were going the right way. Thunder 500, we didn't want to do any good. We just needed to see what it was going to be like in 50 laps, but we only got 40 laps, so that was only for a test for us. We wasn't coming here to try and win anything. We wanted to get some data for the world final. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think the Tigre is going to be any better. That's my honest opinion. The two cars are so mirror imaged in where everything is in them. I can't see. Mine isn't the same as everybody else's. We have bits where we want them to put. If Chris doesn't put them there, we put them when we get them home. So that's another thing that takes longer to get it out of the workshop.
Yeah, the sort of custom building of them, if you like. We have occasionally heard rumours of impending retirement down the last couple of years. It sounds as though you've put all that behind you now.
No, if you can afford it. We had a few things that come up in life that we, works really. For a while went really quiet, and this is still my hobby. And it's like I say to the boys in the garage. This is the hobby. You have all the bills, the mortgages, the kids to, first, then the car, and then work's picked up. So that's sort of made a difference. We've got a new sponsor on the side of the car, which he has now. He's helped out, and like I said, with Tuvi and Phil, and it's just with Tick. It's just everybody sort of last year really put in. That's what's made the difference, and it's it's definitely on the right wave.
How did Tick Stewart get involved with your team?
I would say taking the mick the car was a bad year one night at Ipswich. That was what the start. We've always got on, from back when I used to help Mark Willis. We used to go out with Tick, and it's a long time. We've always known him, never had a problem. And he was just here one night taking the mick how bad the car was, and we give him the spanners and sort of said to him, "You have a go because we can't cure it." And after about 6 months, he said he couldn't either. So it was really one of them, And then we all gone back to the drawing board and just put it back to what we think is a good setting, and we seem to be going forward now.
Yeah, well, whatever you've come up with, it definitely seems to be working. So the plan going forward from here is to do what? You want to be in Group 1, I presume, come next June, July, yeah?
Yeah, Group 1, yeah. I'd like to win the points, this year I did say that that was one of the things I fell down on, that I'm going to win the points. Then we had I can't think, there was 2 at Hennesford, one with Moody, which was me when I weren't feeling too good, and then one with Carter, put me in the fence and done the 2 wheels, so that sort of didn't put me in a very good humour, to say the least. That was one that I like. I think, like Chris, he's won the points, that's when you're going a good year.
Yeah, well, let's hope that you do well with World Qualifying and that you achieve your ambition to win the points. Malcolm, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you.